It is January the 13th, 2025, and we are all ready to begin our meeting for today. So today we'll start off with our consent and action review. And so let's go ahead and have our introductions, and we'll start with our city clerk.
Billy Tons, Deputy City Clerk.
Anthony Fox, Interim City Attorney.
Good evening, James Mitchell, at large.
Dimple Ashmira, at large.
Dante Anderson, Mayor Pro Tem, District 1.
Vi Lyles, Mayor.
Marcus Jones, City Manager.
Malcolm Graham, District 2.
Ed Driggs, District 7.
Darb Carter, 6.
LaWanna Mayfield, Council Member at Large.
All right. So now I'd like to address our consent agenda items, and are there any follow-ups from the council on the consent agenda? Ms. Mayfield.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a number of items that I would like to pull for separate vote.
Okay.
You ready?
I am ready. I'm trying. Got
It's
the
quite a
pen and
few.
all ready to go.
17, 18, 19, 20, 28, 33, 35, 37, 40, and 43.
All right. So may I have a motion for all of the items with the following exceptions? Items 17, 18, 19, 20, 24, 28, 33, 35, 37, 40, and 43. Did I miss anything, Ms. Mayfield?
Let me speak to 24.
Oh, you want,
Apologies.
I'm sorry, 24 as well. Okay, so you've heard the exceptions. All in favor of the remaining items?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Please raise your hands for approval. Okay, that passes. So we'll now go to the consent items. And Ms. Mayfield, we will start, I guess, with 17, and we'll just go down the list.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And Marie, thank you for the printout that you provided to everyone. I was trying to get understanding, and this is a question that I've asked previously when we worked with Lois Better. This bid was around $400,000 less than the next lowest bidder. And what I want to try to see if we can get to a place where we're tracking, or better yet, staff is tracking, where if we receive a bid and then we have amendments to those bids, how close those amendments are getting to make sure that that bid is actually as accurate as possible versus submitting a low bid with the possibility of knowing that you will have to come back for adjustments. And Marie, I believe you got an answer for me.
Hey, Jeff.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And General Services, to your point, does track some of that, and that's where they noted that between 2018 and 2024, there were 78 completed projects and only 3.3% were change orders. But they also wanted to make sure council is aware when a bid is submitted, it's for the total package. Now, things might come up that require extra work, different things like if there's a rocky soil that might cost extra that they weren't planning on. But to your point, that isn't just the same scope and charging more for the same scope. So any of the vendors would have had to increase their pricing based on that.
And I appreciate the additional information because I think that's also something helpful for community to know when they're watching and when we're approving this. So for item number 17, Mayor, the Beatty Tour Road Sunset pedestrian improvements, phase 1, I move to approve to authorize the city manager to execute.
Is there any further discussion on
Second.
17? All right, hearing no further discussion. All in favor, please raise your hands. Anyone opposed? The motion passed. Ms. Mayfield, the next one.
Thank you. 18, 19 are related, and this is just ensuring that I wanted to make sure that I had that understanding since we're using this particular vendor for multiple contracts. There's contracts that they currently have in place, and here's an opportunity with our building grounds maintenance as well as our bus park and ride lots ground maintenance. So I wanted to just get an understanding of the difference between the two. And Marie, I appreciate us breaking down the numbers, because one of the challenges I had was around, for item 18,
I believe it was 19, ma'am.
19, and I pulled both 18 and 19. So, Mayor, is it okay for me to speak to them as one, or would it be better to separate them?
No, I think it would be fine to go with one.
Is it okay for me to speak to them as one, or would it be better to separate them?
No, I think it would be fine to go with one.
Is it okay for me
Mr.
to speak
Attorney,
to them as one, or would it be better to separate them?
No, I think it would be fine to go with one.
Is it okay for me to speak to them as one, or would it be better to separate them?
No, I think it would be fine to go with one.
Is it okay for me to speak to them as one, or would it be better to separate them?
No, I think it would be fine to go with one.
Is it okay for me to speak to them as one, or would it be better to separate them?
No, I think it would be fine to go
All
with.
right, can someone that
Somebody's
has,
editorial.
there, we got
Look,
it.
all the major had
They
to
recognize
raise
it.
out of
Um,
his seat and
Mr.
scared it.
Attorney, is it all right to address both of the items?
Yeah, I think it's perfectly
Yes.
fine for her to
Yeah.
speak. She's pulling the items, and these are two of the items that she pulled.
Okay.
so she
Thank
can
you
speak to
very
them
much
both.
for that clarification. So really, the question around the vendor and ensuring capacity, but also for number 19 specifically, I wanted to understand the expenditures for the contract. So we were able to break down that initially, back in 2021, the total amount of the contract was $370,461. I'm assuming that that was for a 3-year, because we had 2 one-year extensions on it. And if we break that down and but where I had the question is on the bullet item from September 11, 2024, that said the city executed contract amendment number 2 in the amount of $123,487. Basically the equivalent of one of the 3 years if you break it down. But noting increasing not to exceed value of $493,948. So I was concerned with this additional extension, which will be their second extension, which is the Amendment 3, that total being $617,435, where and Marie, correct me, what you explained is, in that 3-year, if it had started in 21, that would have been 22, 23, 24. And then we should have started March of 24. 1 year would have been 25, but we actually didn't trigger it until
September, yes, ma'am.
September. So I just wanted to get clarification on where we noted not to exceed 493, but now with doing this addition, we're basically
It's the last of the 5 years, yes, ma'am.
last of the 5 years extension, which will give us the grand total of $617,435. And this should take us to March of 2026.
Okay.
That was the clarification that I wanted. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to approve agenda item 18 and 19.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the item, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? No one's opposed. All right, does that take us to 24?
Yes.
24.
And in actuality, for item 24, I just wanted...
Item 20, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
We
Yes.
go to item 20.
Item 20 was the Interstate 277 Rail Trail Pedestrian Bridge. I also noted that the lowest responsive bidder on that was a little around just under $3 million difference between the bids. So it was still the same question, yet it was identified. But I thought it would be a great opportunity, again, when community that chooses to tune in or actually look at our agenda, since it is a public record, when they see, they know that there is an actual process in place and there is a tracking. And that was actually answered in my first question, item number 17. So move to approve.
We have a motion to approve item number 20.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor, please raise your hands. Anyone opposed? That passes. So the next item I believe is now 24.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did send an email out to colleagues yesterday when I was going through this, but I sent a follow-up email earlier today after speaking with Marie because I have some concerns, but there's a bigger conversation regarding what we identify and good faith efforts. So after having an additional conversation, I'm not going to make Marie get into the weeds of it, but if you could just let me know if I'm understanding correctly. Even though CBI identified a goal, an established goal level, through good faith efforts, that is where Charlotte Water was able.
So correct. So, and you know, Ms. Angela Charles and her team do a great job of trying to push the goals and get as much as possible. With this one, though, they weren't able to get to the goal without GFE. So they did actually, I'm misspeaking, because they did meet the goal, but it was through good faith efforts. And they worked with the vendor and got, I know it's a lower percentage, but this is even more than when they first bid. And the vendor did work with us and increased it some and extended the bid, gave us a little extension to try to help boost it up as well.
And I believe moving forward that we have council through our direction of staff, we have an opportunity, and I hope we have some time in our upcoming retreat to really look at ways that we can create a really competitive process, keeping in mind that a lot of the product for this is the actual piping and the concrete and things like that, and that's not something that can be broken out, but there might be an opportunity for us to look at other ways. So I just wanted this one to be voted separately for us to be able to have the conversation so that our partners out in the community know that not only staff but council has a real priority around ensuring as much access as possible for our local businesses.
All right. Mr. Mitchell, did you have a comment?
Yeah, let me kind of follow up. Maria, you said something, but I want to be clear. Because the goal, so it's twofold. Let me talk first about process.
Yes, sir.
CBI established a goal of 8%, correct? Mm-hmm. And we end up getting 1.76. So I have a question about process. If my CBI department has identified, let's say for argument's sake, these 10 companies can do the work, then does CBI and the water department in this particular case work with those 10 companies to make sure they bid, make sure they have the resources to pursue the opportunity? Because there's a big disconnect that I got one department saying, in our database, we have this many companies that can perform the work, but bid time, we only to accomplish 1.76. And I just want to make sure we're using the right language, because when they don't hit the goal, we have to go to the good faith effort. State requires, as long as you get 50 points, legally.
I believe ours is 60, but yes, sir.
Right, 60. Legally, they have to be awarded the contract. So let's start off with the first question, process.
So-
CBI and the water department.
Right, so they jointly work together on that.
Right.
And then and you touched on a lot of things that, like, so you said, do they have the capacity?
Right.
So that's a whole different area that water's not as much involved with, but CBI does outreach, with the bonding program that council put in place and different things, and outreach where we don't have enough vendors. But then they work together on here's the vendors, and if they don't bid, we work back with the vendor, so both CBI and water try to do outreach with the
Okay.
vendor and the other people. They do active outreach, so it's not just like, oh, okay,
Okay.
and we validate. So we call and make sure, did somebody contact you? And, and we try to collect some of that, why didn't you bid too? But yes, we audit they submit good faith, and then we audit that to make sure that they did actually do what they said they're doing and do the outreach.
So, Mayor and Council, on the comment I would make, thank you, Maria, is I remember my colleague Driggs and I, we were ED committee, we had a lot of discussion about the good faith effort and how we like to see less good faith efforts being awarded, right? We rather see the participation effort, because sometimes the right people will use good faith effort as a substitute for doing a lot of outreach. And so I just want to make sure the council made fair point. City manager, at the retreat, we got CBI listed as one of our priorities we're going to talk about. And the more we can ensure building relationships, people do work with people they know, I think that's the role that council could play. I have to give water department a lot of credit. This is probably their second good faith of all the projects they have had over the years. So kudos to Angela for her work and her effort. It just, once it hit the media, that you have an 8% goal, you only met 1.76, we get the calls. And how do we explain and justify it becomes an issue. So
Yes,
thank you, Mayor.
All right, so do we have a motion, Ms. Mayfield?
With trepidation. Move to approve action item.
All right, you have a motion, and all in favor, please raise your hands. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, that item 24 is approved. Our next item, I think, is 28, is that correct?
Yes.
All right.
Madam Mayor. And this one was more a consistency issue. We noted that we received 6 responses for our request for qualifications that were not listed. We're having an inconsistency piece where on some of our items, we'll see the bid submittals, others we do not, just for, because again, public record, for also our partners to be able to see this information, and it was not provided. So I want to make sure that we catch that to be consistent in showing that information.
All right, we have a motion for
Move to
item
Madam
approve A
Mayor.
and B.
28.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
Before you entertain that, I was trying to record who made the second on the last motion.
Mr. Driggs made the second.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Driggs. All right, so we're now on to
Did we get
20.
I'm sorry, Mayor, did we get a second on this one?
We haven't gotten to the second, but
Okay.
Ms. Mayfield has made a motion.
Second.
We need a second. Mr. Driggs will be our seconder. And all in favor, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? All right, let's move to the next one, which I believe was, item 33 was pulled by staff. I just wanted to make a note of that.
Thank you.
And so the next item is item, I think it's
35.
35?
35.
Let's go to 35.
Let me make that note. For the airport concourse e-renovation, in my question, I wanted to identify, initially, the project is primarily funded by a $32.2 million federal bipartisan infrastructure law grant under the Competitive Airport Terminals Program. So I wanted to just have clarification on the $14,772,003 as far as, okay, what budget line item? And Marie was able to let me know that that is actually funded by the North Carolina DOT Airport Improvement Program grants. So just wanted to make sure the community also was aware of that.
So do we have a motion?
Move to approve A and B.
Second.
We have a motion for A and B and a second. All in favor, please raise your hands. Wait a minute, I only got 1, 2, 3. We have a sufficient amount. Anyone opposed? All right, so we are now at 39. Ms. Mayfield?
My apologies, Mayor.
That's not a problem.
This one again, making sure, basically I just had fun this weekend trying to track the dollars. So for the airport South Crossfield taxiway construction change order. So this change order is change order number 7 for $567,609.80. You know, as I asked earlier and I've asked previously, I always have questions when we have these multiple change orders that come in. And with this being change order number 7, this right here, we initially approved the contract in the amount of $75,551,803.60. Change order 2 came in to extend the contract. Change order 3, we kept extending the contract a day or two, unfortunately, due to the weather. But change order 4 for $456, just a little over $457,000. I'm thinking because we added to the scope, but then change order 5, another 18,000. So the new value of this is 80,756,939. Just want to make sure when we done now added an additional $5 million to this project, ensuring that we are doing the tracking mechanism. The airport is growing, there's a lot under the ground, there's gonna be some changes, but I think, Mr. Manager, I don't know if we can or if we can't, so I'm asking you this question for us to consider. If we could start looking at a reasonable amount when it comes to amendments, and when we're getting the bids in, either expanding what the scope should be to try to take into consideration some of the what-ifs, and or looking at similar projects and some of the challenges they ran into, so that when we put the RFP out, we have a closer idea of what is a more realistic cost to do business.
Okay.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Jones, yes.
So thank you, Councilmember Mayfield. I'm going to touch upon, I think, part of the solution to what you've been asking and some other council members. In this pilot project, I think we had 3 different facilities that we did construction manager at risk. So when we think about low bid, you may have a $10 million project. They come actually developing the project. I believe you've already approved one where we saw the goals much higher than what we've had with low bid, and I expect to see the same with the other 2 projects. So one of the things that we did to address some of your concerns with amendment after amendment after amendment, is there a different way to go about getting the goals on the front end, and construction manager at risk seems to be a viable solution to that.
So that is something that we instituted in a pilot, and we will continue researching.
You're starting to approve some of these projects
Okay.
with much higher participation, yes.
Okay, because the ultimate goal for me, reducing the number of change orders, because being as close to accurate on your bid amount as possible, taking into consideration some of these things we could probably look at some other projects and get a closer idea of what it actually costs.
Agreed, yes.
Thank you, Madam
Do
Mayor.
we have a motion? We have a motion down here, and a second. We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of item 39, please raise your hand. All right. Let's see, that takes us down to 40. Land acquisition for tree canopy preservation program. Is that right, Ms. Mayfield?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So we are looking to approve the purchase of approximately 30.950 acres of property. And what we're looking at, 40 and 41 will go together. They're both land acquisitions. And Marie, here's
ma'am.
the crazy question for this. Does the Neighborhood Development Grant Fund, which is the grant fund that is funded by our development partners, thankfully, do we have $712,075 plus $594,875 to cover these costs in the Neighborhood Development Grant Fund?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
That is what I wanted to ensure, that we actually have the money to pay this.
All right.
Move to approve A, B, and C.
A, B,
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second for 40 and 41 and 40, oh no, the meeting minutes are 41.
Number 4, just 40, A, B, and C.
Just 40, A, B, and C. And so, all in favor, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? Mr. Driggs also second that. Mr. Fox. All right, the next item
Was 41,
is 41.
of which I asked the same question, move to approve A, B, and C.
Okay. 41, okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your hands. Okay, anyone opposed? So, okay. So we're now going to set a few public hearings. We're
Yes,
gonna
43.
set a public hearing on Balcom area voluntary annexation, which is item 43. Item 44, set a public hearing on Park Crossing Phase 1 voluntary annexation. And then item 45, set a public hearing on River North area voluntary annexation. Do I have a motion?
Mayor,
I'm
I had
sorry.
pulled
Ms.
43.
Mayfield?
I had
Yes.
pulled 43 for a side.
43?
Yeah, that
for
was one it
Balcom?
was.
Okay. We will now go to 44 and 45 and come back to 43. We have a motion for 43, 44, and 45. We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please raise your hands. Okay, now we'll go back to Ms. Mayfield for item 43.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Marie, do we currently have water and sewer capacity without it impacting not only the Catawba River, but our current capacity that we have? Meaning, and I had a question for you, as far as, do we have any current projects that have not moved forward because of our water and sewer capacity?
Thank you, ma'am. And definitely, we have the capacity. And I double-checked with Angela Charles, too. So we're regional already, so the infrastructure's already in place. We're not confined by the city limits. She's regional, county, and then beyond. So she's already, and they plan 20, 30 years out, so they've already planned for this capacity. And then the second, did I answer all that one?
You did.
Okay, thank you. And then the second part, we double-checked with water and with planning, and they don't know of any. They were looking to make sure they didn't miss any, but neither one of them knew offhand of any of them that are stalled for water capacity.
Thank you. And for my colleagues, I asked that question because whether there was accuracy to it or not, or maybe just some misinformation, I had heard from some developers that their projects were not moving forward, and they mentioned or gave the impression that it was due to our capacity levels. So I wanted to find out, one, do we have any outstanding projects out there? So thank you for following up, and thank you to Ms. Charles for always being so responsive, because I know you're watching, to give the answer. So I just wanted to make sure that we have the capacity, especially in light of what we're seeing happening across the nation right now when we're looking at our access to water. Move to approve.
All right, we
Second.
have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please raise your hands. Okay, that passes as well. So we are now down to, I think, our property transactions. Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I believe you approved those, Mr.
Oh, we've already
Fox?
approved those as a consent. Thank you. We got through that. All right, so now.
Thank you, Mayor.
We've finished our consent agenda. And we will go. There was a lot of consent, so we're getting a lot of property and activity working going on. So the next item, we are going to go into closed session. So no, we're going to go into the police chief. Coming in and talking to us is the manager and the chief have been working towards discussion around public safety and what we have for recommendations and suggestions as well as questions. I think that I was saying that I heard Mr. Graham this morning on the radio talking about this, so let's go ahead and dive into this issue. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. So a couple things, Mayor. We do have 4 closed session items.
That's true.
And so what we'll attempt to do is, if we can get through this, then I guess a closed session would be after the chamber. But if we get through this in ample time, we could have the closed session here. I will say that it is a public forum, so people will ask to start speaking at 6:30. So I don't know how I got 11 slides out of this, so I'm going to make it a lot faster than that. So with that said, so council, thank you, Mayor and council, for allowing us to have this comprehensive look at what's happening around public safety here in Charlotte. And we started in December. We talked about this a bit last week. Today is the Safe Charlotte Recommendations Update. The chief will have his annual crime report this week. We do have our annual strategy meeting coming up at the end of the month, and what we committed to you is that as things come up, there may be opportunities to have further discussions during the annual strategy meeting. And then we come back with violence as a public health crisis on February the 10th. In between that time, we will have, as you look at my 30-day memo, budget work sessions, other committee meetings. So there's a great deal of time to have a thorough discussion. And while maybe a topic that you want to talk about tonight, maybe further down the road, or we may have talked about it previously, one of the things that we've, I think, done a good job is tracked all your questions and been able to give you those responses, or at least let you know where we are with getting the responses. So with that said, and I'll be very quick with this. As we go back to May 2020, and following the murder of George Floyd and the subsequent protests, there's a lot of activity that was going on in our community, not just from the city council perspective or from the staff perspective, but even the business community, trying to figure out how we can do more than make this about just a police effort. So if we go to the next slide, we have the safety and accountability for everyone, so Safe Charlotte. And what I thought was somewhat unique for what happened in the city of Charlotte is that each committee took an angle, whether it was workforce development, whether it was mobility, you name it, and there was a thorough discussion, not just within the committees, but also with the community input group that we have worked with over time. And this resulted in these 6 recommendations, which are on the next slide. I won't go through them all. The chief will focus on 2 through 6. I'll talk a little bit about 1. So on the next slide, the council unanimously voted to approve the 6 recommendations identified in the Safe Charlotte report. And since then, we have adopted a bunch of strategies that are related to it. Other aspects that are important, as I mentioned earlier, affordable housing, economic development, and transportation. It's kind of interesting if we start to think about a lot of discussions we've talked about over the course of the last couple of years. It's been a good paying job, a place where you can afford to live, and the ability to get back and forth. So this is even transitioned over into a conversation about Safe Charlotte. With that said, again, we've addressed all 6 of the Safe Charlotte recommendations, and I'll talk just a little bit about the first one before I turn it over to the chief. One of the things, and I think it's extremely important, there's been a great deal of federal stimulus dollars coming and flowing through Charlotte. I think something close to $300 million. And $200 million of that actually went out into the community. And there have been various initiatives, and sometimes we focus on one thing and we lose the picture of how all of those funds flowed throughout our community, whether it was small business or even some of the grassroots organizations. So one of the things that came out was this concept of maybe the city shouldn't try to do everything on its own. And there are a number of grassroots organizations in our community that can help us solve some of these difficult problems. So what we've had is 2 tranches as it relates to investing in the grassroots communities, and it also resulted in 17 different Charlotte-based organizations receiving up to $50,000. I think it's important also that this has been a learning process. Sometimes we realize that some of the grassroots organizations didn't have some of the, let's call it the training, or some of the support that they needed to try to help us address this. So we won't get everything right, but we did try, with that said, we did try to pull as many levers as we could so that this could be a community-wide approach. So that's kind of the setup for Chief Jennings, as I see Councilmember Mayfield.
Ms. Mayfield?
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Manager, before we head over to Chief, I just want to verify, we've identified the 17 Charlotte-based nonprofits. Do we know that all of those monies have been allocated out to the organizations? Because I heard over the holidays that there may have been 1 or 2 that had not received, so I just want to make sure that what we're seeing is these are the ones that have been funded.
Sure. And that's why I said what I said earlier, $300 million of stimulus funds. I believe what you are indicating are some of the financial partners that were a part of the FY25 budget process. We didn't have any contracts with them to begin with, so before we could put any money out, we had to
Needed to get
establish
the
a
contract.
contract. So that's a little bit different than this.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Chief, you've got the podium.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. I'll say Congress, you're not Congress yet, right?
That was yesterday.
Thanks. Yeah, that's right, yeah. Thanks for having me. I certainly, my goal is to go through these as quick as city manager went through his, but I don't think I'm going to be able to accomplish that. So, one, I want to acknowledge members of my executive, my command staff sitting over here. Thanks for being here. A lot of the hard work that's gone into over the last several years is due to some of the men and women sitting right over there. So, thank you for that. So I will start by saying that we are certainly a better police department than we were when this report came out, and certainly better than in 2020. We've made a lot of great strides. You're going to see a lot of things that we can talk about that we've done, and a lot of that has been due to our council that has allowed us to have the opportunity to add positions, to change positions, and to do a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about here. So first is one of the number two was to examine the civilian roles in dispatching responses to low-risk 911 calls for service. I will talk about the CARES team and the CPCRT team here in another slide, but just before we get to that, I do want to talk about our civilian crash unit that was launched. We civilianized the ability to be able to take calls for service that are low-level minor crashes, and we had to do some lobbying with the state to allow this to happen, and they passed that legislation, and we started this unit on December the 12th of last year. And so far, since they've been active, they've responded to 497 calls for service and taken 306 crash reports. And that has, we talked about why we need this, and part of that was the fact that officers spend an average of 40,000 hours a year on crash investigations. And so we were able to take some of that, or minor crash investigations, mind you, but we were able to take some of that and now use civilian crash investigators to do that and free up our sworn officers for other duties. So since 2020, we've civilianized approximately 40 positions that we did a deep dive analysis on what positions definitely need to be sworn roles and what positions can be taken from sworn roles so that our sworn officers can go out and do other things, particularly like answer calls for service and serve other roles that need sworn positions. And so we talk a lot also, you've heard some stories about the amount of special events that Charlotte has been having over the last several years. That is only going to continue to increase as we continue to grow as a city. One of the things that I am looking at and that we are getting ready, actually we are moving forward on, is to develop a civilian crash traffic control officers. We already have a small contingent of that, approximately 60, and those are civilian personnel within CMPD that can go out and direct traffic for special events. I'm given the authority by the state to allow to, as long as I have them trained and equipped, that they can do that with my authority, and they have been doing a stellar job. But since that started, we have now are getting ready to move forward with adding hopefully hundreds within that pool of people that can go out and handle traffic direction during special events, particularly a lot of the road races that you see, and those are off-duty jobs that allows for the civilians to make a little bit of extra money, and as well as free up the pools that we see when we have these events. I was going to say next slide, but I guess that's on me, right? All right, so these are A through G. These are some of the things that, to provide an independent analysis of police-civilian interactions. I'm going to go through each of them, hopefully quickly. And one of the things, we'll start with A, is to improve and enhance the data collected in CMPD's internal affairs case management system. We've done some really robust things with our IACMS, and these are some of the things that were added to the data points that will allow us to better track and analyze our use of force. And you look at B is to link IACMS data sets to provide a more holistic view of officer and resident interactions. And we have been able to, if you put the complaint number in, if it has a complaint number associated with it, we are now able to link that with our CAD events and KB COPS reports and data collection report, as well as we are looking at different IACMS system through a vendor. The one we currently have is homemade basically through CMPD. And we are looking at reviewing Axon and Benchmark, who we currently have contracts with on other items, to see if their IACMS systems will greatly enhance ours and make it, we can go over to those. So we're going to be looking at that and possibly moving over to another IACMS system here soon. So C is add data validation checks to traffic stop data collection. As you probably know, the stop data collection is managed by the state, but we do have a quality assurance professional standards team that is responsible for completing annual staff inspections to ensure that these are being completed properly. In the past, we've had issues with making sure that officers are completing them when they're supposed to complete them. And this team has really stepped up in not only that, but the fact that we have direct supervisory review to hold these officers to ensure that they're completing those stop data reports. And so last year, very proud to say that we did a review of last year and there were no deficiencies that were identified in 2024. So our officers are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing when it comes to stop data information. So incorporate, D is to incorporate more details of officer-resident interactions into use of force traffic stop data to precisely detect disparities. And we pretty much covered that in response A and talked about the strategic policy unit being added strategic policy unit added a new addendum for de-escalation onto the response to resistance policy. And E is to launch a strategic policy unit to proactive research, review, update policies, directives, and plans as needed. We did actually create a strategic policy unit in 2022, which is made up of both sworn and civilian staff. And they have been their goal is to ensure that we're looking at national trends, we're looking at local trends, anything that would affect the operations of our department, that they're either making recommendations for policies, updates for policies, new policies, and also ensuring that we maintain accreditation through our accreditation process. And we go to F, which is refine the model for individual officer analysis to improve accuracy and establish outlier review process within CMPD's Professional Accountability Bureau. This is dealing with our early intervention system that I spoke of earlier, that we have added the calls for service data on top of already collected data, which includes employee demographic data, IACMS data, and arrest data. So the new IACMS system, the new EIS system that we implemented early last year is more robust. It's and it holds a lot more information and also gives more options as far as supervisors are concerned to help with early intervention of their officers that they supervise. It's also not an I got you tool, so it's nothing that we're looking at to use as a disciplinary tool whatsoever. It is designed specifically as it's labeled, or as early intervention. So EIS, just so you'll know, is not anything new within CMPD. We've been doing that for decades. But as we've accumulated, or as we've grown over the years, so has our EIS system, and it has been continues to improve. I think we're on, since I can remember, I think it's our third iteration of the early intervention system within CMPD. And going to G, improve CMPD's commission on accreditation for law enforcement agencies reporting for more holistic view. That's our CALEA standards. That's our accreditation policy. You know, this has been referenced, but we have not necessarily shared this on anything. It is something that we've referenced in different reports, but the accreditation process goes from March until March. And we recently we're sending actually one of my deputy chiefs, Deputy Chief Halsey, will be going to California to go to the accreditation hearing for CALEA this March. So she's going to have a little trip ahead of her, but also that is also open to anyone that would like to attend. It is an open session for the accreditation hearing as well. That includes council and the mayor, city manager, anyone who's interested in that. But the accreditation, we've always had a good standing throughout our accreditation process, and always received high regards and high marks with the CALEA team. All right, and forward to expand crisis response and develop a civilian response model for mental health and homeless calls. This is where I talked about CPCRT and CARES. No need to get too deep into that because I'm sure each of you are already aware of it. There's some numbers up there that we're going to share with you, that's shared up there with you as well as far as their calls for service. What I will tell you is the CARES team, we piloted that, went very well. The county has taken over the CARES team, I think, as of December 4th. So that has moved over to the county that also is responsible for more resources when it comes to mental health and mental health response. So I think that's a good spot for it to land, and very proud of the work that we were able to do to get that cranked up and started. And then CPCRT, thanks to council, a few years ago, we were able to double the size of our CPCRT, which is a dual response with officers and mental health clinicians that go out to these calls for service. Another thing that's exciting that just happened here this past December is we went from contracting out with those clinicians to now they are actually CMPD and city employees. So that's going to allow them to have the benefits that we have throughout our city. I think a lot of them were excited about that, and they are now our current employees. I think they just finished orientation like last week or this week or something. So it's exciting to have them on our team as employees now. All right, so we're going to go to 5 is evaluate our youth programs. I will say, so this was about adding a civilian employee to support youth programs and identify metrics associated with each youth program and goals and objectives. So we don't have a full-time person assigned to that yet. We did just receive funding in FY25 budget that allows for that. So we are in the process now of hiring an individual to take over that position. But in the meantime, to evaluate our youth programs, we brought in UNCC Urban Institute and ROI Impact Consulting Group that did help us do that evaluation. They looked at a total of 3,768 participants in our youth programs. And what they found was there was 88% of those within 30 days to 36 months did not recidivate. They did not reoffend. And then if you look at just an 18-month observation period, there were 94% recidivism. 94% of them did not recidivate and reoffend. So that's a pretty good high marks for those youth programs that we're talking about. And so this is kind of what they looked at. This is their graph that I'm going to share with you real quick. The green bars are the enrichment programs, which means those are young people that had a propensity to go into the juvenile justice system that we officers recognized. They were recommended to go through these programs. They haven't offended yet, but we saw the path that they were going to, and you look at the recidivism rates there for the green and those enrichment programs, and then the blue are the intervention programs. Those are the young people that we have actually have been involved in criminal activity that we have stopped. The goal is not to get them in the system at all for like a minor misdemeanor offense. But we don't do an arrest. We don't do anything other than put them in this intervention programs that that can help us out that to ensure that they get on the right path. So, and we'll go into recruitment and evaluation of training programs. And some of the things that came out of that, I'll try to go quickly here. That one was suggestion was to create 3 civilian positions, including a curriculum developer, a learning development manager, and a training specialist to support CMPD Training Academy staff. I'll tell you, this started in 2021. That we did hire 2 training specialists. We've also hired a curriculum developer, and there are 3, on top of that, 3 civilian background investigators that does take the burden off of some of our sworn officers that were doing some of that work as well. And CMPD continues to evaluate our training and academy staff and implement civilian, or we've already, like I said, implemented civilian background investigators as well. So we're going to keep evaluating the staff needs at the training academies, particularly as we start to fill a lot of our vacancies and have bigger classes that we've been seeing over the last year or so. And review course-specific recommendations from IACP's report and prioritize courses for enhancement. A lot of what you saw from the civilianization of some of these positions did come from the IACP report on CMPD for our course, for our training in recruitment. And what has come out of this, though, has been not just the above, but also our CMPD serves training. And we also enhanced and incentivized our tactical medical training and our CIT courses. So those are incentivized now as part of our, what we call our senior police officer SPO programs that are financially incentivized. If officers are completing these trainings, then that gives them a little bump in pay to say that they are reached another level of training and service for our department. So. And go to C, research the staffing models of training academies and similarly sized police departments. We'll tell you that we have been in contact with several other agencies across the country. Our staffing models are consistent, but what I also know is that a lot of agencies, it's how you use the staffing, and I can give you some examples, but you know, you might have an agency that says they have more staff assigned to their academy class, but they also don't use adjunct instructors, for example. Like we have instructors that their day job is to radio response patrol or out in the field as officers, but there's also times when they are pulled in to help with firearms training or driver's training and things like that. So there are some places that they don't do that. They just keep full staff. So, but when you compare it and evaluate it, it's pretty much similar in the staffing models. All right, so D is further development of a process for identifying and prioritizing future needs, such as creating a training advisory committee and incorporating officer performance and data decision making. So we continue to have mandatory training such as our cultural competency, CMPD serves. We added ethics training as well, and also additional. We are looking at, we already also implemented what we call the lead training at the police academy, which allows for disciplinary hearings that if you're sitting on the board for a disciplinary hearing You can make a recommendation for certain training for that individual if you recognize that disciplinary, that action that officer is sitting for disciplinary reasons for could be helped remedied by additional training. So that's a formal process that's in place now. And also officers who are suspended we've been doing this for a few years and also looking at enhancing this even more. But if you're suspended for 40 hours of training or 40 hours or more, then you're required to go through a mentorship process, which takes several months to go through, that you're assigned a mentor, and that person will ensure that you continue growth and development personally, and that hopefully that you don't go out and continue patterns of behavior that got you those 40 hours in the first place. So, and then develop a plan to strengthen duty to intervene training and curricula for current officers and new recruits. And CMPD implemented and strengthened duty to intervene policy in June of 2020 as part of the department's 8 Can't Wait program or initiative. And, we did work, if you remember, we worked with the Citizens Review Board, and we were able to add de-escalation section to duty to intervene as an official addendum and to the response to resistance policy. We did add that to a rule of conduct. Duty to intervene is under neglect of duty for officers. And we've also, through our training academy, have implemented courses through our basic law enforcement training as well. But all of that is incorporated through our current training, a different kind of training, scenario-based trainings that we're doing within CMPD. And I think I get to pass it back to the city manager now, right? So, or answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Chief. What I'd like to do is give everybody the opportunity to have some time to have a conversation or a dialogue. So I'm going to start with Ms. Watlington, and I want to also say to Ms. Brown, thank you. I appreciate you sitting over here because we were having a little bit of chair differences and all of that, so I want to say thank you for that. And if we will go around and everyone will have one opportunity to speak, and we'll start with Ms. Watlington and come around to all of the council members and then go to Ms. Brown. And I say that because it is 6 o'clock and we have a public hearing at 6:30. So please be respectful of the time that we have. Thank you, Ms. Brown. All right, Ms. Watlington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will be brief. First of all, I'm so happy to see this. Chief, you guys have done an excellent job with the work since Save Charlotte, as the city manager was saying. It's been some time, and so I appreciate that you've come back line by line, really, with what the recommendations were, and certainly a tremendous amount of work done. So thank you to each and every person who has been a part of this process, and thank you to our CMPD officers. I'm curious, given what we've seen here, how much of the recommendations that came out of Save Charlotte was a departure from your business as usual? I'm trying to get an understanding of.
A lot of it. Probably the main thing is the civilianization of a lot of these positions. We used to, I remember being the command staff member and talking about how difficult it was to get civilian positions. This opened the door up for us to basically, council and the city manager gave us carte blanche to say, evaluate it and see what positions. And I think out of all of that was probably the biggest thing. Mm-hmm. But, like I talked about is, as bad as 2020 was, it still opened the door for us to make a lot of changes that we otherwise would not have been able to make. So you look at, I'm just off the top of my head, 80, 90% of it is probably stuff that would not have happened had it not been for the Safe Charlotte report.
I love that. I thank you that you were a wonderful partner during that time. And kudos to this council and to previous council for taking a situation that had really, really tough implications here in our city and turning it into something positive. So I'd love to see that. I just want to dig a little bit deeper on the program evaluations. That was particularly interesting. I was extremely encouraged to see the numbers here. Two questions. The first one is, do we have any qualitative data in terms of understanding why recidivism numbers look the way they do? What was most effective about the programs?
Yeah, I don't right offhand off the top of my head, but that is a very good question. I don't even know if there is a legitimate answer. But what I can say is that there have been studies that I know that if children or young people are given programs and opportunity, then they're less likely to be involved into the criminal justice system. We are able to identify the right. Oh, did you see? Did you want to say that? I'm sorry. But we're talking about, we're in a unique role to be able to identify those young people that need assistance more than probably anybody, because we are coming into contact with them and their families on a regular basis. So we're actually blessed to be given the opportunity that we are. I mean, people say all the time it's not really the police role to do the intervention and to do the programs, but to be able to be in this position and that we're allowed to do this is a great benefit to us and to our community.
Thank you, Chief. And my last question, and this can be homework for the next time we meet. Yeah. What do you need to do more of this?
Resources. Staffing is always an issue, and this is not easy. We go out and we get grant money and grant funding and private partnerships to help with the majority of this, and but it also takes a lot of staffing. Summer programs for young people, we are able to move staffing around to be able to do that, but as we continue to grow, it's mainly the biggest thing would be the resources to do it. So, thank you.
Ms. Mayfield.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Chief, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Along with the books that were included in our packets over the weekend that went into more detail. Certainly. You all have done some amazing work, and I'm glad that you were able to present all of this today to us and to the community, because perception and reality sometimes don't necessarily line up. We have challenges, but you all have been doing some really good work listening to community.
Yes.
And moving forward, I would like to add, while we're on this slide, later on, it might be helpful if, from what you all see, if you can share with Housing and Community Safety Committee some of those partners that are really doing that exceptional work as we're going to be going into this upcoming budget cycle. We had some that received first-time, one-time funding. We're looking at trying to streamline our model with our partners, so it will be helpful if we can get an idea for council and for committee to know those organizations that are helping you get to these levels and beyond.
Yeah, we would absolutely do that, yes.
That would be very helpful. I also want to say how happy I am, and I know a number of others are very happy with number 6 and E, the fact that that CMPD implemented a strengthened duty to intervene policy. That has been something that across the nation has been a concern and question that community has if a situation were to escalate, and knowing that we have policy language yes. to say what is the responsibility of the other officers that are around.
Certainly.
And that is something that I believe you mentioned other communities and what lessons they've learned, and the fact that we've implemented it and put the language in place just shows the commitment that you have to listening to the community and being willing to learn that some things can be done differently, and it just doesn't have to be the old way of doing things, and I definitely appreciate that. I attempted to go online to just look up the civilian opportunities. Don't have to answer it now because my colleagues also have questions, but it will be helpful if we can just get a one-pager. What are the qualifications unless you want to touch on it quickly,
Yes.
for these civilian roles when we're going out into the community and trusting individuals to step in to assist you all.
Yeah, and I mean, we can certainly look at that a little bit deeper, but just right offhand, there's different civilian roles that have different qualifications and mandates. You know, like a dispatcher might be totally different than having someone who's working in property control or animal care and control. So we have to kind of weigh what level of civilian position it is and see what those requirements are. But every one of them is probably going to be a little bit different.
Because I'm thinking specifically those that are going out for the crashes.
Yes.
For those and for the street racing, because sometimes that could be something, that could be a situation that could lead to something that's escalated quickly.
Yeah, we'll leave the street racing to the sworn, though.
Thank you. So that is good
yeah,
for
but
clarification.
you're absolutely right. The civilian crash, like our civilian crash investigators, there are certain requirements. But the main thing is the requirements can be minimal, but the training is a little bit more intense. And we just want to make sure that people are capable of doing the job and doing it correctly. So.
Well, thank you, Chief, and thank you to your team that's here with us. Y'all are doing amazing work.
Thank you.
And I'm glad we're able to highlight it tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mr. Bakari?
Thanks. Mr. Manager, I continue to applaud you for bringing this series to us. I think it's critically important. It elevates this topic in our own minds, in the community's minds as they're seeing us talk about it. And as we've discussed, you know, the outcome here is we're marching towards our offsite at the end of the month so that we can take the action that our constituents expect of us. I think on the, you know, glass is half full side, there's a lot of men and women in uniform doing a lot of really great work. And I think that has resonated through all the presentations we've gotten. On the glass half empty side, I think it remains that we have to figure out whether it's perception or reality that is driving a lot of this from our constituents. The fact of the matter is, you know, homicides were up over 20% last year. We're going to get more data as it relates to the tens of thousands of people impacted by property crimes. And that list just goes on and on and on. And I'm not sure at this point, based on what we've gotten, that we're in a position to take action and establish new policy yet. I think we need to see some of that glass half empty view. And I think our big opportunity is coming up next week with the look at the data. So I applaud all the work that's been done. I don't want to take away from that, but we have a job that our constituents are expecting us to do, which is wrap our arms around and start taking action through policy on what's going on the public safety front. And I feel unequipped by the end of the month for us to go and take what we've gotten and say, okay, here's what we need to do to change that not just narrative, but trend in the data. And whether it's 110 homicides up by 23% year over year, or what we'll see more deeply in the property crimes, like that's the insight that, and why next week I think is so important. Because if we go and just have a general conversation about public safety at our retreat, we will have failed in our preparation to do what our constituents are expecting of us right now on this front.
Mr. Driggs?
Thank you, Mayor. My comments are very similar to Mr. Bakari's. I think what is evident from this is that we have a very well-run police department. And the foundation, the Police Foundation found that a few years ago. We can be proud of the professionalism and dedication of our officers. At the same time, as Mr. Bakari says, and Mr. Graham, I won't anticipate, I think I heard you say this too, we are answerable for the outcomes. And we have been talking about sort of dramatic initiatives, Safe Charlotte and so on, for 4 years at least, and we can't point to, big success. My personal view is that a lot of these problems are social, just as the school problems are social, and therefore, where you look for answers or what your understanding is of the root causes of these things is critical. I do think that based on the experience of some other cities like New York, there is a trade-off between how aggressive your policing is and what kind of crime you have. And the tension there is the rights and the First Amendment and so on. So how do you conduct effective policing and keep people safe and not either offend an ethnic group or trample on someone's rights? But I think we need to recognize that and confront it head on. This conversation is not going to give anybody a sense that they can look forward to feeling more safe. And so that's a comment, I think, for all of us here. It's a tough subject, and we represent a variety of constituencies. I might be seen as the guy who is inclined to be tougher, but I really don't speak out of any desire to oppress any members of the community, but simply to talk in terms of what works and what doesn't, as opposed to talking about actions that we are taking that do not result in observable changes. And people are expecting to see a decline in these crime rates. And I don't think that's an easy thing to do. So I will just say that. The other point is you did mention resources. I hope during our budget process we're going to look carefully at staffing and resources and not let a situation persist where there is any shortfall in our investment in CMPD while this public perception continues, because it's easy to say, hey, you guys aren't spending enough and look at what we're getting. I can tell you that in D7, I was told by officers recently, they don't have those robot radar screens, and they've been trying to get them. They said those screens are very effective. Matthews has beautiful screens. Pineville has them. We don't have them. They have 2 displays that are 40 years old and don't work. And so when the officers, and I won't name them, I don't want to get them in trouble, but when they brought this up, they were told there's no money for that. And this is like $30,000, and I'm wondering, why isn't there any money for that? That is a way to keep people safe on the roads. I'm told by the officers, it's not a policy statement, it's an experience statement by the officers that this is an effective means of calming traffic. And because in District 7, our traffic coverage is pretty thin because most of the officers go where the dangerous crime is, there's a lot of bad behavior on the roads, not by me, but by other people. I just don't want to hear that, right? While we're trying to be responsive to public concerns about safety, the idea that CMPD is under-resourced strikes me as something that we need to take very seriously. But Chief and all of you, I have the greatest admiration for your work. Appreciate what you're doing.
Mr. Graham.
I concur with many of the sentiments that's been expressed today. And Chief, I want to thank you for your leadership and your support, for the work you've done 4 years since the Safe Charlotte report and the accomplishments that you've made. Certainly want to acknowledge the leadership team that's here as well. I mean, you don't do it by yourself. There's a team of folks, and even the line officers. I had an opportunity last week to spend some time in Freedom and Wilson with Officer Garcia at a community meeting. And as I make my way around the district, the officers are there, they're present, they're accountable, they're informed, and they're engaging the citizens as they should. So I think we have a really, really solid foundation in terms of what the police department is doing. There is no microwave solution to getting these numbers down, and there's some hard work ahead of us, and I look forward to receiving more level-setting information as we are getting today, and for a more meaningful conversation after we receive the results of the 2024 crime statute release later this week, and then we have a greater policy discussion about crime as a public health safety crisis later in the month. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Madam Pro Tem, excuse me, Madam Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And Chief, thank you for the presentation and the line-by-line walkthroughs, very helpful information. A couple things just from your presentation in general. It's good to hear that the CARES team is going to be a part of the county because they'll be closer to those resources. Yeah. But I hope that you will still have line items around their performance and what they're doing as you continue to update us. Because I think this information is very interesting. It seems like there are several repeat offenders that the CARES team is interacting with based on the unique users numbers and the number of interactions. So I just really like to keep that top of mind as that team grows and expands. that we have that information around their performance. And then the other question that I had was really around the program evaluation of number 5. When you look at the blue numbers here, which really are the intervention numbers, you know, that you have some solid success rates there, but there's some significant difference between the enrichment programs and the intervention programs.
Yeah, that just shows the value of intervening early, because the enrichment programs are before they have actually committed criminal activity.
Yes.
And then the diversion and reach out are after. So
Yes, and that's
significant.
what I was seeing in the numbers as well. It's just, you know, with the intervention programs, just be really interested in seeing what we can do to increase those numbers. I mean, it's a hard story, right? Once they offend, then that proximity to offend again, it's just very, very, very close. But getting those numbers up, I think will benefit the community overall. And I know you're doing everything you can in terms of looking at what's going on at a national level, and how we can incorporate those into what we're doing. But really, really strong work with these, with the youth programs. And lastly, I'll just say, you know, for District 1, I'm going to spend some time with my officers coming up in the next week or so to really understand, I think, you know, just neighborhood by neighborhood, you know, what are the unique environments that we're facing, not only within District 1, but throughout the entire city, to ensure that we're addressing the crime numbers. And I believe your office sort of preferenced the numbers, in particular with the homicides, in alignment with other cities that are our size.
Yes.
And that was helpful for me because it allowed me to baseline this information. Even though these numbers are going up, baselining this information along with other analogous cities, you know, we're still below where we're seeing some of our peer cities at. But of course, as we continue to grow, as some of my colleagues have already said, it's inevitable that we have to be on top of these numbers and make sure that the crime doesn't increase as the growth rate of the city.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of, I think people have forgotten that after 2020, a lot of these major cities had record number homicides.
Yes.
We were at one point one of the only major cities that actually had reductions in homicides. So a lot of you look at a city like Baltimore, they're praising their numbers that went from 300 and something homicides down into the 200s. I said, definitely don't want to be sitting at that number celebrating the 200 homicide year. So there are certain things that we've done up until this point that at some point you're always going to be facing those numbers and the successes you might have had earlier. So.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes.
That's all I had, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Ms. Ajmera? Thank you, Madam Mayor. Chief, I also would like to echo my colleagues' appreciation for your work and your team's work. We appreciate the work that you all do. I know your job is very tough. I've done a ride-along when I first started serving on City Council, and I saw firsthand how you all put lives in danger to protect all of us. So we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Some of my questions were addressed. Councilwoman Watlington nailed it when she talked about Safe Charlotte program, how in 2020 our committee, that in fact a lot of the groundwork was done by Councilwoman Watlington, and how it was unanimously adopted. So it's great to see an update on that. And just this past week, I was asking the manager about
performance metrics on our programs. So it's great to see that we have that. So what I would like to see, Mr. Manager, as we go into the retreat and our budget discussion is how do we scale this? Because now we have performance measures in place. We have metrics that shows these programs are working. And this is where we should be investing in. So I would like to scale this program at where we can really engage our youth early on, and where it's needed, we also do more intervention. And that's first. I also agree with my colleagues, Councilmember Driggs, Bakari, and Graham on homicides. I don't think it's just a perception issue. I think it is a reality where many members of our community do not feel safe. And I said this past Monday, but we can never be truly a great city where all residents across the board do not feel safe, regardless of their zip code. So we certainly need to work on that. I know cities like Boston, I gave an example this past Monday, where they had a very ambitious goal of reducing their homicides by 20%, and they've surpassed that with the truly collaborative approach. What is your recommendation in terms of us adopting that ambitious goal of having some sort of accountability that we have ambitious goal for other things, whether it be transportation, Vision Zero, environment, why not have that for our crime rate?
Yeah, first of all, you have to be careful comparing to other cities, particularly Boston. You know, Boston's 40 square miles.
Smaller.
Yeah, we're 311, I think it is. We're 313. Okay, thank you. I was close, but so and then also you look at the surrounding. And I have some very good friends. The commissioner in Boston is a good friend of mine, and some of his staff as well. You look at the surrounding areas around Boston, they're not so fortunate as far as the homicide numbers. So I think we look at this, and like I mentioned earlier, is that per capita for our city, I think there are plenty of major cities that would love to change places with us. However, I understand the perception that people are dealing with, but the reality is that the majority of our homicides are people who know each other. There are arguments that escalate. Very rarely do we have and it's also looking at the lifestyles of some victimization, high-risk lifestyles that are involved as well. So we have to be able to get that at the core before they get into those lifestyles or before we have the conflict. You know, how do you do conflict resolution when two people are arguing over something and one decides to use a gun to settle the argument? So it's a difficult situation, not just for me. I don't say that just as me for Charlotte, but that is a difficult situation we talk about regularly from major city chiefs is what kind of impact can you actually have when it comes to homicides?
So let me say this. I do not want to discount the work that CMPD does, right? So when we adopt a goal, it's not just CMPD's responsibility. It's us as our community, it's the county, it's the city. It's truly a collaborative approach to dealing with homicides, right? I get it. A lot of the homicides that we are seeing is relationship-based, where conflicts are not being resolved in a peaceful manner. But this is really how do we address that? It's programs like this, right? It's the prevention. And it's not just CMPD alone. Like I said, it's the faith community, nonprofits, government agencies, truly working in a collaborative fashion to address it. But I personally think that as a community, we do need to adopt some sort of goal to work towards that. Because, yes, even I understand relatively, when we look at other large cities, Charlotte is relatively safer.
Yes.
But, you know, our numbers have gone up significantly from where we were. and data shows that. So certainly there is something that needs to be done in a collaborative fashion to address these issues at the root. That's all I think.
Yeah, and I don't want to have homicides define the crime, what's going on in Charlotte, right? I mean, as we've seen, it does ebb and flow. And I think one of the biggest things that I saw as far as homicides, Baltimore, I mentioned Baltimore earlier, and there are a number, but they accredited their district attorney's office, the resources that are put into their district attorney's office to where they're actually, if you look at our homicide suspects, it's likely that they've been involved in the criminal justice system multiple times. And so one of the things that they talked about in Baltimore was to have that robust district attorney's office that is holding people accountable for some of the minor crimes before they get to ending up taking a life. So.
I agree, and I think district attorney's office needs to be at the table as part of our collaborative vision to solve this. It just can't be CMPD's responsibility alone.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, thank you. I'm very excited about in the budget. You're going to find someone that will be in charge of youth programs, and you can count on me as we have budget conversation to make sure we can give you the staff and resources so you can continue your success. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Molina.
Well, that was good, colleague. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I want to echo the sentiments. A lot of great points have been made around the table. Thank you.
Thank you.
For all that you do for our community, Chief, and all your deputy chiefs that are here to support. And I've listened. Actually, I think the Boston conversation has come up several times, and your sentiment, the city manager, Iram Farouk, she was at Harvard with me over the summer. Oh, yeah. Great lady. But again, their geography is much, much different than ours is. So I don't want to get caught on that particular example. And Mayor Brandon Scott in Baltimore, who, you know, we correspond through NBC Leo and a lot of the things that we're able to do at the NLC level. And sometimes we share ideas, right? And they share what they're doing, what's working, what's not, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm really cautious to alarm the community with what we're not doing as opposed to what others are doing, because there are distinct differences in all of our cities, right? Some good, some bad for all of us. And so with that being said, I'm looking forward to the policy discussions, you know, based on the information that you're having. The only thing that I think I would ask, if there's anything, first of all, I echo the sentiments of my colleague. I absolutely love when I'm with the officers and I see them engage. I wish more people knew how much engagement our officers take place in. We don't give enough emphasis to it. The youth programs, the engagement processes, I'm a big fan of that type of work because I think it works as far as mitigation is concerned. But my only question, and I've wondered this, and I alluded to it, but I'm not really sure what the process is. If you, let's say, in evaluating this quantitative information, you discover something that you say this needs more emphasis, is that something that you then instruct Marcus and then Marcus is to instruct us, or kind of what is the pipeline for how that goes?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the city manager and I have discussions all the time about things that we need within CMPD. I think the hiring of the full-time staff has this an ongoing evaluation, not just come in and take the information we have at the time, but we'll develop a process to where we're constantly reviewing and making adjustments. And there may be a situation where we say we need additional resources to hire someone to help in that role as well. So those conversations do happen, and the city manager's always been very receptive to requests and needs that I've asked for. So.
Okay, that's good to know. Because I just wonder, sometimes things bubble up. I don't know if it's perception or not from the community, right? And then you get the emphasis from us saying, hey, this needs to be taken care of. And oftentimes what I see is a divergence in what you know as far as the data is concerned and what the community perceives, right?
100%, yes.
So, I mean, we could have more of an offline discussion. I'd follow up with the manager, but I just wonder, kind of how we connect those dots. But that's Good to know.
Yeah.
That's all I have. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for that.
Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you,
Yeah.
Chief, for the presentation.
Thank you.
I had the honor of, just last week, I think, of reaching out to you twice to share comments from the public on how wonderful Captain Crum and the university precinct does. I also had the pleasure of attending a community meeting with Officer Logan last week, so they
Yes.
do a great job. Thank you for the presentation. I just have a couple of questions regarding some community programming and staffing levels. I was at a presentation in the university area, and they were talking about the PAL program. And it's one of the youth programs. Did you talk about that today? I think that's a program that we should really lift up. It sounds like it's very successful for youth. Can you either share a little bit about it today, or?
So our Police Activities League is actually run by a different board. It's not a CMPD board that runs that, but we do participate with the Police Activities League, where a lot of our staff will volunteer to be a coach or to assist in some way, but we do have full-time staff assigned there as well. So it's less of a intervention type program that we have, but we do have some, we service at-risk youth that can give them activities that they would normally otherwise wouldn't have. And I think that's a huge part of, if you keep kids, young people busy, they're less likely to get in trouble. And Police Activities League does an excellent job doing that. So we support them through CMPD. We don't run the Police Activities League, though.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And then there is a program where families can register their address if they have someone with a mental illness or
Yes.
someone at risk or vulnerable in the home. What's the name of that program?
Wow. I
That's
knew you
okay,
were
I
going to ask me the
couldn't-
name. Safe Outcomes, yes, Safe
Safer
Outcomes.
Outcomes?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
That was started, I want to say in 2017, somewhere around there. Yeah,
Okay.
Safe Outcomes.
If we can get some information on how that program's going, or if it's successful, or if.
Yeah, that's a great one. The thought process is excellent, where if you can get information that can go directly to the officer before the officer even gets there. Say, for example, if you have a subject who might have mental health concerns, that somebody can put in there, well, he or she does not like bright lights. Well, that might tell the officer not to shine a flashlight. You know, there's data that can be put in there. It was promoted pretty heavily when we started. I'm not sure of how many registries that we do have, but it is a really good program that gives us data prior to our arrival or dealing with someone who might be having a mental health crisis. So.
As a mental health brain injury advocate, I've shared the information, but I think it could be shared more in the community. I think it's an important program.
Well, we'll get some information over that to council. Again, I don't have numbers or anything like that with me right now, but I'm not sure how much it was embraced with the community, that they actually participated in it, but we can find that out.
Okay, thank you. Then as far as staffing levels, a couple years ago, you and I talked about the recruitment process. I know there's been some changes as far as the certifications, but we discussed dissecting the recruitment process or the hiring process and taking a look at where we're losing minority applicants.
Yes.
On how we can look at that through an equitable lens and improving those numbers.
Yes.
Could we get some data on that?
Certainly, I remember us doing that few years ago.
Yeah.
And we have had some changes in how, like particularly our DELPO program, which is a reading level program that was showing some disparate impacts as well. So we've discontinued that. We also discontinued the JARPAT as a requirement to enter the academy, which had a disparate impact on female applicants. So let me see what we have, and we'll get that shared with you.
Okay, I think that's great information.
Yes.
The DELPO, and you said
And the
JARPAT?
yeah, JARPAT,
Okay.
yes.
All right, if we can take a look at that. And then 911 staffing. I know we've been talking about 911 staffing levels and just callers being on hold when they call.
Yes.
that's been a challenge for a long time. So can you speak to that a little?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure there's really not a remedy to say that if we had X, then this won't happen. A lot of times when we have high call volumes, if you imagine that a major crash on an interstate could truly affect our call for service or calls coming in, if you have 50 people calling in an accident at the same time or very close to it, and that can really bog down the system. We are looking at some, we're looking at some ways to mitigate these calls for service where people don't have to be on hold. We've been looking at that for years. However, we also implemented the process to where if the phone is not answered within a certain period of time to 911, it goes over to fire dispatch. And if fire dispatch doesn't answer within a certain period of time, it goes over to medic dispatch. And keep in mind, a lot of times the call will be answered. It's not necessarily on hold. It's telling someone to stand by. So your call is being answered, or we're getting someone to you. And so we try to answer that within so many seconds. And then to make sure that people don't hang up, we want to make sure that they know that their call is being answered. So sometimes people mistake, there are times they are on hold, but sometimes people mistake that for being on hold when within seconds you're going to have someone with 911 that will actually pick up. So it's always it's a challenge, I know, but I don't have a direct answer, but I do know that we are increasing on those numbers as far as the percentage of answering 90% of the calls within 10 seconds. So 90-10, I think we are around 80-something right now, but we still have to continue to improve on that. So.
Well, thank you. Great job. And Mr. Manager, if we can have some data as far as the KPIs or information about the 911 calls, I think that's an important issue to address if more resources need to go there, but that is a challenge for us. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Ms. Brown?
I actually forgot about you. I was getting ready to leave.
Wait a minute, Chief. Now, don't you go there. No, we're not doing that.
She's been so quiet over here. So.
The mayor said, don't even try. No, I'm sitting here and listening attentively to my colleagues. I did take some notes. They did have a lot of information and good feedback, because everybody's feedback is important, because we all make up this council, but I do not want to take away from the great work that you and your team have done. If we can concentrate on your efforts to listen to us and respond, and you did that accordingly and attentively. If we can go to slide 16, please, I would greatly appreciate that. I like to consider myself an expert in this line of work. I just can't wear a badge and wouldn't want to.
Yes.
But I honor and respect you guys to the fullest. So on slide 16, you went through it, but I want to go over to the CPCRT and go up under the 437 assessments completed and the 77 diverted from jail. I'm most interested in the 77 diverted from jail. What took place, and you may not even have all the data in front of you, but if I can get some of that, that is what I like to see. I think any type of diversion from our youth going into the jail system, it doesn't rehabilitate them anyway.
Yes.
And I think a lot of times that you all spend with investigating them, being out on the spot with them, having civilians in front of them, I'm a big advocate for that, and the work that's being done in other places. When it comes to, I'll let you answer that.
Oh, yeah, I can tell you, when you talk about diverted from jail, these are people that are likely having a mental health crisis of some sort that have probably committed some crime that they would have normally, an officer by him or herself would have taken that person to jail. And instead of going to jail, they are getting resources that they need on the mental health side of it. So,
well, I know I can say that the sheriff is happy that y'all didn't send him down.
Yeah, probably so, yes.
I know he's happy for sure.
Yes.
And I would like to say also on slide 17, if you can go to that one for me, please. Okay. That's good to hear, because I think when someone's dealing with a mental crisis, or if there's some type of brain injury, as Councilmember Johnson used that term quite often, they certainly don't need to go inside of the Mecklenburg County Detention Center or any other detention center for that matter.
Yes.
You said something about UNCC Urban Institute, and I just wanted to, you to dig a little deep for me on that, and what is their contribution into the program that you're trying to implement?
Well, these are consulting groups that came in to do the evaluation. So when I talk about what they've done is they looked at these participants and we brought them in because we didn't have a staff member that can do a deep dive into our youth programs. If anyone can recall, in 2020, we talked a lot about the youth programs that we had, but we had no results from those, and that was a demand from council, is that we want to see if what you're doing is working. And so this is who we brought in, these groups we brought in to take a look at our programs and to do an evaluation of it. So.
All right, so that's great to hear that you had the outside consultants, the experts go in and do some of the work that was actually required. Now with the youth programming, how much participation from parental? Are parents involved, or the caregivers, anybody that's overseeing the youth, are they involved? Do they get to put any type of input?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have that data to answer for. We can certainly find that out for you, but it's all consensual, obviously, that we are looking, and parents should be involved in what we're doing. Sometimes we get better cooperation from some parents than others, but I think we pretty much have some of my staff nodding their heads that parents are heavily involved in that. So
that's good to hear. But even if they're not, then there's also alternatives to parents not being able to be there if they're absent from the home or they can't be there.
Yes.
Or an older grandparent or something like that. And so I just have a few more, just taking notes because colleagues said great things. I know that Councilmember Graham, Bakari, Driggs, and I think Ashmere said they want to make sure that, community feel like they're safe.
Yes.
If they don't feel like they're safe, then they're not safe. That's true. A person's perception is just their perception, but we also want to make sure if we can start with small nuggets and low-hanging fruit and be able to move forward, I think that we're on the right path in doing so. I also would like to share, I'm always going to say this, I know I heard you say something about the civilians and the animal care. With me, since I came on, I've been doing a lot of work with Dr. Fisher and his staff. And I know this cannot even happen while I'm here, but that's one thing to take off your plate. If we can get those little four-legged creatures up under their own entity that people love so much, they treat them just like babies, and those furry creatures that people love so much. That's something that I'm always, I want to advocate for that, and I want to speak, in maybe with the city manager, strategy meeting or whatever. If that's something that's off of your plate, along with the 911 calls and different things. I also went into a detailed 911 call. You want to respond to that?
Oh, well, I was just going to say, our animal care and control, they do a phenomenal job. To be honest, I've talked to the city manager that as far as as many headaches as I have, that's not one of them, because I know they're run very well. I think they would agree that they should be a separate entity from police. So, but yeah, I certainly understand that sentiment when it comes to taking that and putting it in another location.
Okay,
so.
well, no problem. And then I think this will be my last, because we got the consultants, mental health, the diversion piece. The last but certainly not least, it would be, you said that you need more resources to be able to move this forward. And so when you say resources, are you saying how we allocate for you in the 2025 budget?
Yeah, mainly personnel.
Okay.
Yes, mainly personnel. And then, there's obviously some equipment and things that go along with that, and then funding for certain programs. But yeah, personnel would be the main thing.
Okay, all right. And so, again, I commend you and your wonderful staff for all the work that you're doing. For me, I am not a fan of the wheel has already been invented, right?
Yes.
But what goes on in Baltimore, I love what the mayor is doing in Baltimore. He's doing amazing things with the DA, and there's some things that we certainly can learn from them. But I think the city of Charlotte is our own unique and specific growing city at an alarming rate, and we have a lot of tools and resources on hand where we don't need to look outside and get anything from anybody. We can take a look at it, but I think what we have is right here in the community if we use it. All hands on deck, nonprofit organizations. I've said multiple times, and I'll continue to say that, for someone that is involved with justice and have definitely been implemented by the justice system from a very, very young age, which most people don't know. I started getting in trouble at the age 15, and I was living in 28208 Southside Homes community. But I wanted to share that the path to redemption for a lot of these young folks, one, what they're looking for in their zip code may not be there, so having the civilians come in and take them to Johnson Smith or wherever they need to take them to for these programs as a diversion is amazing. And this is what I say when I say reimagine justice, reimagine what community can look like, and just taking the civilians and having them implement their expertise into the program. So I like what I see. Homicide is a totally different ballgame. I think it's a different subject altogether. Yes, our youth could be diverted from committing a homicide or being on that path to where it can be detoured, but we have to just take one measure at a time. And I think this measure, the amount of progress that's been put in this, it's hard to please me, right? I stand unapologetically in my truth when it comes to supporting those that have been in the justice system. And for me, for this, I like what I see.
Yeah.
Okay?
Still a lot of work to be done, yes.
It's a whole lot more work to be done, but if we're talking about what you presented today, take your flowers from me, please.
Yeah.
There'll be days when you won't get any.
Yes.
I'm
taking them.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Before we go down, I want to give you kind of an overview of where we are. We will have a closed session tonight. It will be after we have the agenda. But I do want to say something about this. I think a lot of you spoke around the idea of how do we get collaboration and how do we do this. And it came to me that, and we're about to go down to listen to several people talk about homelessness for children. And I wanted to just say, if we can think about how we are going to do work in a collaborative way, that is the number one way that we need to start with it. And I say that because, you know, when we start thinking about what's next, summer is going to be here very, very quickly. I mean, and it's going to be hot, and there are going to be things that are going to be going on that I think we must take some effort around the idea of how do we address they're going to come and talk about the McKinney-Vento Homelessness Act. And this is where you try to get kids into immediate school enrollment, to get them in good school choices, to give them transportation and educational services, support services, and remove barriers to what they're trying to accomplish. Now, we're going to hear, and people are going to ask us to weigh in on this, but it is not just our responsibility, just as we've been talking about, what are we trying to do? But I do think that these efforts around how to collaborate with the county, how to begin to think about what we can do more with the police department, and thank you all. I know you've been given lots of accolades today, but you deserve every one of them. And we need to begin to think about what this means by the time we get through our retreat. So that we have the time and the energy and the connectivity that's necessary for this to happen. So we are going to go downstairs. We were supposed to start at about an hour ago with our public session, public forum. We also are going to have the West Charlotte football team who won the statewide championship. And I think that's why Mr. Mitchell is downstairs now, probably trying to catch some balls or something like that. We'll see. Thank you for being present. We are running a little bit late today, or this evening, but we hope that you will understand that what we are doing is working to serve the city and the residents, and so we really want to appreciate you doing this. So our first effort is to have our introductions, and we'll start with our city clerk.
Stephanie Kelly, City Clerk. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Tijuana Brown, Charlotte City Council, District 3. Y'all know what? The west side is the best side.
Uh-oh.
There she go. I already knew it was coming.
There she go. Good evening. I am Marjorie Molina. I represent the east side. District 5.
Good evening, Renee Johnson, and I'm honored to represent District 4, University area. Go 49ers.
Absolutely.
Good evening, James Mitchell, class of 80 of West Charlotte Senior High School.
You can have it. MPHS.
We only do that when you guys come.
That's right, that's right. That's right.
Okay, all right.
Marcus Jones, City Manager.
Vi Lyles, Mayor.
Good evening and happy Founders Day to my sorors of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Oh my, now we're going again.
Dante Anderson, Mayor Pro Tem, District 1. And District 1 is all over. We're citywide.
Malcolm Graham, District 2, the home of the West Charlotte High School line.
Y'all still my school.
All right.
Ed Driggs, District 7, just like heaven. Thank you.
Tara Picard, District 6. We'll leave it there.
Luana Mayfield, City Council at Large, and I'm a West Charlotte alum through marriage, so
That's
I'm
right.
claiming
That's
that.
Good evening and welcome everyone. I'm Nicola Eshmera, serving you as your at-large member.
We begin our meeting with the appropriate willingness to understand that this is greater than all of us here. And so if you would care to join us in our invocation, which is going to be done by Councilmember Driggs. And then following our invocation, we will have the, I forgot, we're going to be at the flag, and we will have our Pledge of Allegiance. So if you choose to stand with us to do that, please do so, and we will go ahead and ask Mr. Driggs to address us.
You want to pledge allegiance first?
We're going to pledge allegiance after the meeting.
Heavenly Father, accept our thanks for this day and all its blessings. We ask that you guide and direct our efforts to serve our community and everyone who lives in it. Grant that each of us may be just and fair and act as good stewards of the trust that our citizens have placed in us. Bless those who work with us to serve our community, particularly those who do so at grave personal risk to themselves. May Charlotte always be a place that we all can be proud to call home. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, for joining us in this. All right.
Oh, she left.
Oh. I would also like to bring forward our new interim city attorney who just joined us here, and this is Anthony Fox, and if you guys need a lawyer, you can call him.
And I did go to West Charlotte.
Oh, no. Okay. All right, so I think that this is the appropriate time for me to recognize James Mitchell.
Mayor and council and to the citizens of Charlotte, it's a great honor. I'm going to publicly say this. Mayor, thank you for allowing this to be on our agenda. You all don't know, the mayor was watching the game. And so as soon as we won, she tweeted out, we're going to recognize West Charlotte. So I know we're supposed to do this 3 times, but let's do it 1 time. Dub C.
You know.
All right. I want to recognize two people, if they can come down to the podium, and Coach Griner and the principal, Paula Cook, to very brief comments about the West Charlotte 3A State Football Champions.
All right.
Coach.
Good evening, and thank you for having us. I had some words planned, but in the interest of time, I just want to say congratulations to our boys. We are very proud of them. This is something that we have not experienced at West Charlotte in 29 years. I remember I was a student. I had just graduated from Chapel Hill at the time, and I went over to watch the game since I was a native Charlottean. I wanted to see West Charlotte, and here we are. I've got a child that was the age I was then, so that's been a long time coming. We appreciate y'all, and we are very proud to call you West Charlotte Lions State 3A champions.
Yeah, I really appreciate being here. It's definitely a pleasure to be the coach for this team. It's been a blessing more than anything just to be able to coach these student athletes. I don't just get to coach great football players, but great men. And I always tell my wife all the time, if anyone ever had to babysit my children, I look no further than this team. They do great things outside of football, and that's probably why this championship came. It's just because of the great people they are. And they showed up here tonight. I just want to congratulate you all because you're the ones that won the football game. I'm just a part of the team. And it's a beautiful thing. We always say, you know, when we get off the bus, and I always tell people, we're not scaring a lot of people. We're not the biggest, sometimes not the fastest, but when we leave, you're going to remember us forever. And this year, they will remember y'all forever. Congratulations.
Additionally, I would also like to thank all of the West Charlotte alumni. If you are familiar with the network, it is like nothing that you have ever experienced in your entire life. So I just want to say thank you to all of the various classes that are here to represent and that continue to represent us everywhere we go, all times. Thank you.
Will the football players that are here please stand right now? All the football players. The champions, could you please stand?
All right, you know.
Say one thing that's really cool. A lot of these players are still coming back, so we're planning on repeating and coming back next year. But amongst these football players, you know, it's all about the next step. Total, with everyone that's here tonight, there's probably close to 50 scholarships going into college football and to be a student athlete.
Coach, I'm sure that you've made a great impression upon these young men, so thank you very much for what you've done. And anybody that's a principal, God bless you. That's all I can say, you know. Mr. Mitchell, anything else?
No. The alumni, please, you travel to Raleigh, you travel to Hickory, you travel to Greensboro. I just want to thank you to the most powerful alumni in the nation, West Charlotte. So thank you for your support and supporting our team. Thank you.
You should go home and study.
Right.
You know, there's probably a few of you that might need to open a book. I was watching a football game last night, and this guy was opening a book and reading it. It makes you know that you should never stop learning and being a part of something. So thank you very much. All right, so we're really glad to have you, and we're really glad.
So to translate, things are about to get very boring. If you want to leave now,
you better
do it. You may.
I know.
I'm just saying.
That's right.
It goes downhill from here.
Thank you very much for coming.
all got a special towel.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, wait a minute.
North Carolina.
Here we are.
We got him.
We got it. Yes, thank you.
Y'all for y'all towels.
I just thank y'all for the towels.
picture?
Give the missus a hug.
I will do that. Take it easy.
Even the east side.
All right, the photo ops are going all around, so. Yeah.
You want to autograph my east side?
If you need me to, I can do that.
I ain't got no pen though. I ain't got no sharp.
There you go.
Look, a sharp.
Okay, so if we can come back to order, the city has a proclamation that will be read by Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Whereas in 2024 in North Carolina, more than 350 women will be diagnosed with invasive cervical cancer, and over 100 women will die of cervical cancer, according to the estimates from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. And whereas, per the National Cancer Institute, the 5-year survival rate of individuals diagnosed with cervical cancer is 67.4% due to improved treatments, early diagnoses, and vaccinations. And whereas, according to the National Institute of Health, cervical cancer incident rates and death rates are still high among certain populations in the United States, largely due to the limited access to cervical cancer screenings and vaccinations. And whereas the City of Charlotte recognizes cervical cancer awareness and encourages all residents to know that cervical cancer is treatable and that routine screenings and HPV vaccinations can save lives. And whereas the results of the simple Pap tests and HPV co-tests can be used to help prevent cervical cancer or detect cervical cancer in its earliest and most curable stage. And whereas patient advocacy organizations like Survivor, which inspires and empowers those affected by cervical cancer by educating and motivating them to use their voices for creating awareness to end stigma, influence decision and change, and end cervical cancer. Now, therefore, she, Vi Alexander-Lyles, the Mayor of Charlotte, does hereby proclaim January 2025 as Cervical Cancer Awareness Month in Charlotte and commend its observance to all residents.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And if Dr. Fitch is present, can you come down? And I'd like to provide you this proclamation.
I wanted to just take a moment of personal privilege. Yesterday, I went to the service for Karen Alexander, who is the mayor of Salisbury. And it was a lovely service, but it made me really remind us that you just never know when life is going to be. And Karen was found her cancer 3 months before she passed away. So I know that they are having a vigil in Salisbury this evening, candlelight. She was such a great mayor for them. So while I can't be present to do that today, I just want you to recognize that we lost someone that was just a lovely person and a great mayor. So thank you very much for that moment, to have that time. We are now going to begin with our speakers list, and we have 9 people to speak on that have signed up to speak, and we have 3 minutes, which is pretty unusual for us to be able to have 3 minutes. So, I mean, hopefully you have a lot more time. I'm going to recognize Neil Sampson and Margaret Reynolds, and if you'll come up and we have the podium, and then we'll hear from you. And your recommendations? Yes. 2, 5, 6, Quail. Yes, if you would give us your name and right there. And you are?
I'm Margaret McReynolds.
Margaret McReynolds. Is Neil Sampson available? Okay, in the honor of Neil Sampson, I'm going to ask the Quail Hollow Troop 256 to stand up and be recognized. Thank you for being here. All right, thank you very much. I think, as you know, you could be very bored, but maybe you brought a book. Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Reynolds.
Good evening, council members. My name is Margaret McReynolds. I recently moved from Austin, Texas to District 2. I work for Truist and attend First Presbyterian Church, Charlotte. While living in Austin, I volunteered for over 15 years at the Austin Animal Center, during which it achieved no-kill status with a 90% companion animal save rate. This was the result of deliberate planning, funding, and a shift in mindset, something I believe Charlotte could also achieve. I now volunteer at Charlotte Animal Care and Control, primarily helping with public animal health clinics. My husband volunteers with Habitat for Humanity, and we're both committed to supporting our community. My faith teaches me that we are responsible for nurturing and caring for all of creation, and that includes the dogs and cats who rely on us for protection. Other cities like Austin prove that it is possible to operate an open admission, no-kill shelter, and Charlotte can do that too. It's particularly difficult when animals are euthanized simply due to lack of space. The constant cycle of overcrowding impacts not only the animals, but city shelter workers, volunteers, fosters, those seeking help with their animals, and the broader community. I also have concerns about how Charlotte's shelter is structured. Among other things, having it sit under CMPD has led to a bureaucratic and often discouraging volunteer process. I'm speaking from experience. I put off applying for over a year because of the application's process time, the time commitment, and invasiveness. I have seen a more efficient, community-friendly approach be viable. Animal Care and Control's director is dedicated and capable and makes the most of what he's given. But it's clear that much more could be accomplished if the shelter had adequate resources and if Animal Services were an independent department with better funding, staffing, and more modern facilities. I believe we can be a first-class city in every way, including in how we care for animals. Pets are integral members of families, and a well-supported animal shelter is key to supporting all families, regardless of income or circumstance. Please continue prioritizing shelter expansion, and please make Animal Services an independent department. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kenny Robinson.
Hello, Dr. Robinson. Thankful to have my full 3 minutes this time. My name is now Dr. Kenny Robinson, founder and executive and president of Freedom Fighting Missionaries. Don't look so alarmed, Smudgy. If you pay attention online, you would know that. And I am here tonight to talk about the homeless children that we currently have in the city of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County who are labeled as McKinney-Vento children because they are in CMS schools and they are experiencing homelessness. We will end this school year with about 5,300 of them. Over 4,000 of them will be black students. A little over 230 of them will be white students, so we can see the disparities there. Freedom Fighting Missionaries have been working to bring awareness to the plight of our children in CMS who are experiencing homelessness or housing insecurities. As a part of that advocacy, we worked with students at Queen's University, and I tasked those students with researching the McKinney-Vento program and to create an op-ed on their findings. We are very thankful for the work that they did, and I am here seeking to inform our City Council on this issue in hopes that we can garner support. And that support is not just funding, but also so the city can encourage the private sector to contribute to this effort, to make sure that we leave not just no child behind, but also leave no child homeless, while expecting that same child to perform as well as their peers. We are thankful to our partners at Crisis Assistance Ministry, United Way, and the Home for All Initiative, Housing Collaborative, and Heal Charlotte, and all of our funders and donors who in 2024, utilizing City of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County ARPA funds. We are proud to report on the data that have come from that. We used our funding to shift our housing focus to target McKinney-Vento homeless children who have a parent or caregiver whose barrier to safe, affordable housing is due to a previous background or their involvement with the justice system. Some of that data from 2024, utilizing $1 million from the City of Charlotte and funding also from Mecklenburg County, we were able to provide 178 identification services, 84 healthcare services, 126 employment services. We served 190 families with housing, 384 children that were in McKinney-Vento. Small percentage compared to the amount of youth that it is, but we were able to take 384 children out of hotels and shelters and place them into permanent housing, utilizing that funding. Thank you so much for your time.
I see Judy Schindler is joining us.
Good evening. Thank you all for your leadership. I'm Rabbi Judy Schindler, and I share these words written by my Queen's University student, Sydney Jackson, who worked closely last semester with Kenny Robinson with Freedom Fighting Missionaries. Kenny is an amazing leader. He has a heart for everyone in our city and for all our children. So I'm here to address an issue that deeply affects some of our most vulnerable residents, our children. Specifically, I want to highlight the intersection of housing instability, parental incarceration, and education within the framework of the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act. In Charlotte-Mecklenburg County, far too many children are left to bear the burden of their parents' mistakes, their past mistakes. These children face housing insecurity, disrupted education, and a host of other challenges simply because their parents were formerly incarcerated. The McKinney-Vento program was designed to ensure educational stability for children experiencing homelessness. While it has provided a safety net, it's clear that the demand far exceeds the resources. Children who qualify for McKinney-Vento are often shuffled between temporary housing or shelters, creating constant uncertainty. Imagine being a child trying to focus on school when you don't even know where you'll sleep that night. Children with incarcerated parents are already grappling with the stigma and emotional toll of separation. Add housing insecurity to the mix, and we're setting them up for failure before they even have a chance to succeed.
Amen.
Studies show that children in these circumstances are more likely to experience lower academic performance, higher dropout rates, and greater involvement with the juvenile justice system. We are essentially perpetuating a cycle that keeps families trapped in poverty and despair. This is where we as a community must step in. We cannot allow a parent's incarceration to become a life sentence for their child. It's our responsibility to expand programs like McKinney-Vento, provide more robust housing assistance, and ensure these children have the stability they need to thrive in school. Education is a great equalizer, but it can't work its magic if children do not have a stable foundation to stand on. If we don't act now, the long-term impact of our community on our community will be devastating. These children will grow up carrying unhealed trauma, affecting their mental health, their relationships, their ability to contribute positively to society. I urge you to allocate more resources to housing initiatives for families affected by incarceration. Let's provide wraparound services that address not only housing, but counseling, academic support, and community mentorship. These children deserve the same shot at a bright future as any other child in our county. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Lula Sherrill. Ms. Sherrill. You may lower the mic if you need to. If you want to lower the mic so that you can speak into it easily. Yeah, that. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Lula Sherrill. I'm not a pastor, nor I'm part of an organization, but I have compassion for the homelessness. And God tells us to help the poor and one in need that I would like to introduce to y'all to take a look at. It takes more than 3 minutes for you to look at this plan. And my plan is not to build projects, but build communities, and that we can help bring down crime. If we go back to what old folks used to say, it takes a village. And I would just like for y'all to open up y'all minds, and open up your hearts to take the time to meet with me at some time and the chief of police to just take a look. Don't dismiss me or the plan, because it's not about me nor you. It's about helping the ones that are less fortunate to us. And I'd like for y'all at some point in time, anyone in here, to take a look at Luke 16:19 through 31. Thank y'all, but don't dismiss the plan. Thank y'all. Open mind.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sherrill. Thank you. Our next speaker is Darlene Pegram. Ms. Pegram. You can get right behind this, if you walk right up behind there, and the microphone is right there for you. Thank you. I always worry about all of us coming down those steps, so thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council members, and staff. My name is Darlene Pegram, and I've lived in Charlotte for over 50 years. First, I just want to give my condolence to Councilmember Graham, sir, for the loss of your family. Sir, thank you for your braveness. The reason I'm here is to bring the attention to juvenile and teen violence that is going on in this city today from A to Z. If you touch something that is so hot you burn your fingers, do you touch it again? One bad apple spoils the whole bunch. So why don't we pluck that bad apple out and save the apples, or just save our children, or the youth, or the juveniles? And now, the Mecklenburg County juvenile justice system is releasing criminal juvenile youths back into to the parents, guardians, which comes back to the public. I am sorry to say that I am a victim of juvenile crime. And the same juveniles that committed the crime, I watched them every day walk in front of my house because of the juvenile system. The government, there are government programs and non-government programs to get them back on the right track if they're willing to do the work. Juveniles that commit crimes over than 2 times, more than 2 times, do not deserve the same benefits. The same juveniles I am referring to, they are responsible for the uptown break-ins, the car thefts, vandalism, and a lot of stuff. Wearing CMPD bracelets. So, and it's like 45 counts, I believe, times they've been in and out of the system. And they're still walking around today. So watch your cars. We teach our kids they can be anything they want to be, not do anything they want to do. I am here for the safety of Charlotte tonight. That's why I'm here. And I just want to thank you all for listening to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. Our next speaker is Donna Dunlap. Ms. Dunlap.
Good evening, Mayor Lyles and City Council members. My name is Donna Dunlap. I am the President and CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Carolinas. January is also Mentoring Month, and I'm really excited to have this opportunity to share with you that we will be hosting an impactful youth mentoring summit January 30th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the UNC Charlotte Center City. The rise in youth violence, the mental health crisis young people are experiencing, and the increased academic performance gaps continue to persist since the pandemic. You've heard about it throughout this whole meeting. Young people urgently need our support. Mentoring is a proven solution that we as a community need to deploy support on a larger scale. City, county officials, mental health experts, CMPD, CMS executives, parents, mentors, nonprofit funders, and youth services organizations will be attending and participating in the summit. The desired outcome is to inform the community of the challenges young people are facing and to inspire advocacy so that we can empower young people to realize their full potential. Think about who changed or influenced your life. Mentoring is the answer. We hope that you will join us and be a part of the solution. And I have invitations here if anybody has not received theirs yet or would like to have.
If you would give them to the clerk, we'll make sure that everybody gets one right here. Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Dawn Nicole McElwain.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. It's good to be with you tonight. So my name is Dawn Nicole McElwain, and I stand before you tonight representing a first-of-its-kind organization named Queen City Women in Business that is absolutely dedicated to the success of helping women small business owners get contract opportunities faster. Let me tell you something, a story about how we started. We started this company right here in the Charlotte area in September of 2023, after I personally was an award-winning company who had sold my services to billion-dollar companies outside of the supplier diversity program like Boston Consulting Group. However, I found it extremely difficult in the city of Charlotte to do business, to have awareness, and to have advocacy. Now, you might be asking why. There's resources out there, there's information, but we needed more than resources. We needed relationships. We needed more than that. So I started this company to reduce the barrier to access for every single woman out there. Let me tell you how that went. In 1 year, we grew this community way beyond the city of Charlotte. We grew it into 17 states. We're in 4 chapters, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Indiana. Those are established chapters. We helped women-owned businesses secure $2.25 million in contracts 1 year, 300 hours of training and development, and we helped 177 women get certified. Now, I don't know about you, but that's pretty impressive. We did this in 1 year, and we did this by using a sourcing and development platform that's online that enables itself to teaming. This is something we're not thinking about. We're thinking about the one contract, but what we've done is we've created the Facebook of women in business suppliers. We've become a model, and now Alabama, California, and others want to do business. They want the model. They want the secret sauce. But you know what I want? I want to put the city of Charlotte on the map. I've had about 5 meetings with the city of Charlotte CBI. I've tried to get the attention, and I'm more than proven. What I want is someone to take what we've put together and work with you to create a sustainable supplier ecosystem so that we are thinking about suppliership from a proactive nature, not just in time, so that we can hit those MWBE utilization and participation goals. It's time to put the city of Charlotte on the map, and you have the talent to do it. We have a proven track record. Let's do business. Let's grow together. We believe we have your solution. Now we need your attention. I'm hoping that someone from your office will give us a call, and let's do business together. Let's change the trajectory. On March 5th, we're doing our first National Supplier Summit. We have other markets coming here. There's no reason why we can't amplify Charlotte as a top model city. We can do it together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For March 5th. Okay. All right, thank you. Our next speaker is Robin Hamilton.
Ironically, I'm one of her customers. I bought your LMS system. Absolutely. So, good evening. It's good to see everyone here this evening. So, Madam Mayor, City Council members, it's a pleasure to be before you. My name is Robin Lake Hamilton, and I serve as the President and CEO of the Urban League, your Urban League of Central Carolinas. And I want to express my sincere gratitude for the ongoing support that the city has provided for the Urban League of Central Carolinas, and specifically the Alternatives to Violence program that we facilitate for you on the nation's Ford and Arrowwood corridor. There's been a lot of doom and gloom and conversation about violence, but I'm actually here with good news, and just nobody's asked us, but we thought we'd come share the good news with you. The Urban League has, of course, been a pillar in our community for over 47 years, championing economic opportunities and social justice for African Americans and other underserved populations. Our commitment to Southwest Charlotte, especially through the AVP program, is making a real difference in the lives of residents. I want to thank City Council of Mecklenburg County for recognizing the value of AVP and for supporting its expansion into the Southwest Charlotte area. Your investment in this program is an investment in the safety and well-being of our community. While it's true that Charlotte, like many other cities, has experienced an increase in homicides, we are seeing encouraging signs of progress within the Alternative Violence program, which is a 1.5-mile catchment area. We're seeing an increase in the number of key individuals that are collaborating with the Alternative Violence program, and we're seeing positive feedback continuously from the community about feeling safer in their neighborhood. One significant success we have had with our Alternative to Violence program is aligning community residents with alternatives. We actually provide them with an alternative to violence, and that's with jobs. And we provide them with workforce development training that leads them to a career. And we've secured additional funds through the National Urban League, who has added us as a subrecipient for the United States Department of Labor's Growth for Opportunities goal, and we'll be leveraging that funding for folks that are 18 to 24, starting next week. There's 3 areas we have identified as strategies that can continue to decrease conflict on nations forward. 1, we need your help. We want to bring long-term stay providers, hotels, extended stays together with community leaders and residents to foster understanding and equip providers with the tools to address resident needs proactively. To empower these providers, we need your support to convene the companies that own these long-term stays. 2, we want to empower apartment communities, equipping apartment managers with the proven strategies to boost resident engagement and resolve issues before they escalate. To empower these communities, we need your support to convene the companies that own them. I'll give y'all 3 another time.
Thank you very much, Robin. Good to see you, and thank you for the work that you do. So I wanted to make sure that each speaker is aware that we are grateful that you come down and help us understand what's going on in our community. And we also have a process by which you will have a follow-up from someone on the staff, and we'll have the opportunity to go into further details or deeper. And I guess we really know how deep some of this needs to be, and appreciate what you bring down and help us to understand best around our community. So hopefully we will have the opportunity to hear more from our team, who will contact you over the next several weeks, okay? Thank you very much for participating in our community's leadership and really have a great understanding of what we need to do. So we are going to move now into our public hearing. We have a public hearing and a decision on Miranda Road Firehouse Number 46 area voluntary annexation. Do we have any speakers, Madam Clerk? No, ma'am. There's no speakers. Do we have a motion to adopt an annexation ordinance with the effective date of January 13th?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor, please raise your hands. Is there anyone in opposition? Hearing no one in opposition, we'll go to our next item, which is item number 9, and that is the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Just 2 quick items. I know we have 4 closed session items for later. I just wanted to bring your attention to our 30-day memo, which I know it's only January 13th. I think we're almost a quarter of the way into the year with so much that the council has before all of us. But January 21st is the zoning meeting, but then the 26th through the 29th, so this is the only business meeting for the month, will be the annual council strategy meeting. I will make sure that you get some additional information in your Thursday packet about where we're headed with some of the thoughts. It really goes back to the budget committee meeting where we had an opportunity to get feedback from you. We will have the council committee discussions, and in the February budget committee meeting, I will bring forward or ask what are some topics that the council would like to have in those budget workshops, as well as feedback that we get from the annual strategy meeting. And the first budget workshop is on the 10th of February. Wow. And also, as we've talked earlier tonight, the violence is a public health crisis, which we'll have an opportunity to really show a lot of the collaboration that's happening between the city and the county across the board. I think Sean, last time the question came up, he was able to jot down like a dozen opportunities. So I think there's more we can do, but there's definitely more that we are doing. And then lastly, we started off, I guess last week, we talked about corridors of opportunity. And my goodness, did we have a great week in terms of federal grants that the city received. So $31.4 million in federal grants last week that were announced. So again, if we go back to 3 or 4 years ago, when we started talking about the corridors, the expectation wasn't always that the city by itself would fund these. We would show some promise. We would get opportunities for state grants, federal grants, as well as the business community. So that's really, really big. And I just commend everybody on the team that's been working so hard to actually apply for the grants, as well as the council to continuously support the team as we, try to emphasize the corridors opportunity. So just good news. I know we mentioned a couple of million, but a lot of things happened since that last meeting, and I just wanted to make sure the council was aware. So thank you, Mayor, and members of council.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Any other good news?
That's all I have.
Oh, shoot. Okay. All right, so let's go to our next item, which is agenda item number 10. The action is to adopt a resolution authorizing the donation of a surplus Charlotte area transit system van to Promise Youth Development.
Move to approve.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion. Oh, we have discussion?
Yes, just
We will start with Ms. Molina and then Ms. Johnson. Ms. Molina?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be brief. So you guys, if you recall back during the budget session, we had the discussion around supporting Promise Youth Development, which is an East Side nonprofit that focuses on teen development, and they have a lot of mitigation opportunities for youth, and they've done an outstanding job on the East Side for residents, children, and children throughout the East Side for nearly a decade now. The leader of that particular organization, she's a registered nurse. And like I said, she, I think in our earlier agenda, we see where she's actually partnered with CMPD for mitigation services. So she's already an existing partner. And this ask was so small. And I remember when I reached out to our interim CAT of this, and I asked you all to support me in us providing this, valuable resource to that nonprofit that serves our entire community. That's all I have. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your advocacy, Councilwoman Molina. It's so important to support grassroots organization. It is a small grant for us, or a small resource, but for the organization, I know that it will be huge. Yeah. So Councilwoman Brown and I met with CAT staff. It's been a few months regarding a van donation to an Orwood. If you can send that to us, the status of that, there was what we're doing to serve that population. There was an organization that was asking for a van, so this is just a good time to ask. Thank you.
All right.
Move to close.
We have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? All in favor of the item to...
Second.
We have a second? Yeah. Thank you much, Mr. Driggs. So
Thank you, Mr.
all in
Driggs.
favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. I think that there is unanimous. Anyone else, anyone in opposition? Okay, with that. So you now have a CAT's fan. Our next item is item number 11. It's a municipal agreement for a new traffic signal installation, adopting a resolution authorizing the manager to execute an agreement with NCDOT in the amount of $214,000 and adopt a budget ordinance appropriating that. And this is for a traffic signal at the intersection of East W.T. Harris Boulevard and University Ridge Drive, Rose, Heather Court.
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, that passes unanimously. The next item is the Belt Greenway Connector Phase 1 supplemental municipal agreement. Adopt a resolution authorizing the manager to execute a supplemental agreement with the North Carolina Department of Transportation to adjust the project limits for the Belt Greenway Connector Phase 1.
So moved.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing no one with opposition. We are now prepared to go into our closed session. Thank you all. To the scouts up there, appreciate you now. You can go get home, you know. So we will be going into, I need a motion from the attorney, sorry. Mr. Fox, if you give us a motion to go into closed session, please.
Both items. Madam Mayor, members of council, the motion is to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute, Section 143-31811A3, to consult with the city attorney to preserve the attorney-client privilege on in regards to the following matters: U.S. DOJ suit against the city of Charlotte, North Carolina, pursuant to Sections 706 and 707 of Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 as amended. The second matter is Shaquita Gaddy versus City of Charlotte / solid waste claim number W004095848. And the third matter is regarding, just an update regarding Lindsay Cully et al. Versus the City of Charlotte et al. 21 CVS 12505. And then the other matter is a motion to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-31811A4 to discuss matters relating to the location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the area served by the public body, including agreement on a tentative list of economic development incentives that may be offered by the public body in negotiations. Those are your two motions.
All right, we have a motion. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Anyone in opposition? All right, so let's go back into the room behind us here and get this done.
Shouldn't be long, right?